The federal government is preparing to implement its tax reforms in July, as announced by Mr. Taiwo Oyedele, the chairman of the Presidential Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms Committee. These reforms are included in 4 bills that are currently awaiting consideration by the National Assembly. The Nigerian Governors Forum has supported these tax reforms following months of negotiations and consultations. The Senate regards this endorsement as a significant advantage for the passage of the bills, but stresses that public input on the legislation will still be considered. The Senate is scheduled to resume its sessions on January the 28th after a brief break. According to Mr. Oyedele, the bills are expected to be passed by March, with additional preparations for implementation planned for the second quarter. Joining us in the studio to discuss this is lawyer and social development advocate Jide Ologun. Good morning. It's good to have you join us.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure.
Right. This matter of tax reform bill and all, it seems the dust hasn't settled yet, because even after the governors agreed, there are those still querying what the governors agreed on, saying it is not equitable, it doesn't seem like it's in the best interest of the people, and it is not transparent enough. Now, for instance, Senator Ali Ndume, who has been very vocal about his stance on this, has said that this matter of sharing formula, which has been a major controversial issue in this reform, that what was agreed by the governors doesn't seem equitable. For him, he says 50% should be for derivation, 30% for population, and 20% for equality, as against 50% equality, 30% derivation, and 20% population as agreed by the governors. Where do you stand on this?
You know, for Senator Ali Ndume, he made a reference to the 13% derivative for the Niger Delta region.
Yeah, saying it's
that
too
carries
much.
the burden of the oil and gas resource of Nigeria. And he is saying that that should be reduced. So the 30% should be reduced to 10%. And he's also concerned about the 4% that we go to FIRS for collecting taxes. He is claiming that that should not be exactly, and he even said that is why they spend recklessly. You know, and
he used the word extravagantly.
Exactly. This is the beauty of democracy.
Right.
You know, when you talk about passing a bill into law, there are about 11 steps that you can crystallize into about 4. The presentation of the bill, you know, the first reading goes with that. Then you have the second reading. Then you have the input. You throw it back to the committee. And even when the National Economic Council was asking that the president should withdraw, there wasn't any need to withdraw. That's right. It will still be, you know, people will still have to bring their input. And I appreciate the concerns of the likes of Governor Zulum, who came out to say this reform, these changes, when you talk of reform, you are changing the norm, you know, to improve expectedly. That it will further impoverish the people. And I'm happy with that, that at least the northern leaders are acknowledging that there is need to deal with poverty in that region. And then the Oyedele team said, no, go and study it critically. So we talk about stakeholders engagement. And I've seen that handled effectively, because there must be, in respect of this tax reform, there must be about 7 issues. Raising the bill, which came from the executive, then you talk about the reason. What's the reason for the bill? And according to the team of Oyedele, it is to centralize and simplify tax system in Nigeria towards national growth and development. And of course, there is an intention to reduce the tax windows from about 60 that we may have currently to about 6, you know, to harmonize the complex tax system, and of course, other reasons given. And you have risks that are involved. People must express their concerns about the consequences. And You talk about the resources, the responsibility, and the relationship.
Right.
And the relationship is the political aspect. So
right.
I appreciate those who came up to say, let's have a critical look at this before we proceed. Even the House of Representatives, they are now saying that despite the fact that the 36 governors have endorsed and come up with the VAT formula,
they're going to look at it critically.
They're going to look at it. And that is the beauty of democracy. So at the end of the day, we are on the same page with the saying of the wise, that it's better to measure 10 times and cut once than to measure once and cut 10 times.
But from where you stand, from your point of view, when you look at the agreement, especially with the sharing formula, I really want to get your perspective on that. Would you say it's equitable enough?
It's neither here nor there. When you talk about derivative, it touches on your productivity. And that is where the concern is. I read a report. In the first republic in Nigeria, no part of this country was in poverty. You see, you remember the granite pyramids in the north, you have the coal in the east, you have the cocoa and things like that. So how have we come to the point where poverty has visited Nigeria? So what this tax reform may be out to achieve is that look into your region.
That's right.
And there are elements attached to productivity. When you bring the economic factor in. Insecurity. I mean, Kano used to be a huge business center. Absolutely. Is it the same today?
No.
Where are the textile mills? You see, so these are issues. So I think this change process should reawaken the need for security in Nigeria to attract investments into your region. It's very important. It's very important.
That's right.
And that is why some are not persuaded that the interest of some of the stakeholders is really about the people. If you care for your people, you develop them. But then this may just be a reawakening, because on the whole scale, I am also interested in the fact that this tax reform will bring benefits to the majority of citizens, because that is another trust gap that is there.
And talking about bringing benefits to the majority of the citizens, is one thing for you to introduce a bill, it's another thing for you to get it implemented. But then let's look at the legal and constitutional hurdles that it might definitely face. For instance, if you look at section 162, where it says, provides that the Federation shall maintain a special account to be called the Federation account, into which shall be paid all revenues collected by the government of the Federation, and so on and so forth. It has some other provisions, in the subsections areas. But some legal experts have said, can we fix this whole tax matters without having to tinker with section 162 of the 1999 Constitution?
Of course. Section 162 is concerned about where the revenue is lodged and how you manage the revenue. And tax is not the only revenue nets that we have in the country.
Absolutely.
We have the oil and gas, we have the gold, we have our mineral resources, we have other taxes, other income flows that are deposited into that account before they are shared. And I think where we are moving right now is towards the true federalism that we are talking about, which demands that regions should take up responsibility for the prosperity of their people, And let me say this, if you look at section 4 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended, it empowers the National Assembly to make laws for the peace, orderliness, and good government in Nigeria, and by extension, the state houses of assembly. I am suggesting, I'm setting an agenda that the National Assembly, with the powers available to them, should look at the fact that we have the resources of this country in terms of management on the exclusive legislative list. And that is why the gold in Zamfara is managed by federal government, the abundant bitumen in Endorse state. And so let's see, there is no state that is not endowed in this country. Let's see how states can manage their resources and contribute to the center. But that may be a difficult one. How? I've looked at that sector. Right now we have 109 senators, 360 others members. And so if you now claim that, go back to your region and develop your region. You see, that may be a complex issue, but the power to restructure this country lies in the National Assembly, and that is what the former President Buhari kept on hammering.
Why is it complex, really? Because they had a responsibility right from time. That's why they are at the National Assembly. And so what is making it complex for them to deliver on it?
You know, the monthly salary makes it complex.
Their monthly salary?
Yes.
They shouldn't be paid?
And the largesse of office in the bicameral legislature that we have at the center.
Are you saying they shouldn't be paid?
I'm not saying that. I'm just telling you now that,
right.
I mean, you will not want to leave 21 million naira per month and go back to a region to even compete. What are the chances of even, you know, being relevant at the regional level? But I see us drifting towards there. And the other option is to facilitate the development of this country. You see, kudos to the leadership of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu that is even striving to reactivate our refineries and bring some of the architectural, economic, architectural, infrastructural structure in the country back on stream. But otherwise, you know, this poverty we are talking about may not be resolved.
For instance, you said that what we are seeing on the ground is just like ensuring that the government gives us true federalism that we've been advocating. But Arewa Youth Consultative Forum, you know, their leader, Yerima Shetima, said they criticized the governor for the vote fast that they made. Because at first they said, when they know that they would eventually throw their weight behind the tax reform and then advance some of the arguments they advanced before they show that they are agreeing on it, why did they initially criticize it? Because, I mean, before they realized what they had done, maybe it was wrong. So it goes to show, according to him, that they put their level of foresight, question their level of foresight and credibility in providing their respective states the quality leadership that they deserve. So do you think that the current leadership that we have, especially those manning the state, are doing enough to ensure that they deliver the good dividends of democracy, of governance to their people?
There's what you call return on investment. If it has been positive, it will reflect in prosperity in the nation. So if what we have is poverty, you know, and the answer is that leadership has not done enough for citizens, peradventure, that is one of the issues being addressed, because one of the intentions of this tax reform bill is to ensure that the vulnerable is taken out of the weight of taxation. But I was on another program, and the speaker that presented before I came in raised the point that even the 50 million threshold that is considered for the small-scale businesses is too low. It should be raised to 100 million. Because if you look at the cost of doing business, even the small-scale business will disappear, because there are organizations that spend 50 billion on fuel alone in this economy. Look at when the NLC and the other stakeholders were engaging the government on the issue of minimum wage that was eventually passed at 70,000 naira. I did a research. The minimum wage of 70,000 naira in 2024 is far lower than the minimum wage in 1981 when you throw it into the foreign exchange dynamics. So that is what we are talking about. You see, so how effective will these policies be in reactivating a vibrant economy in the country? Right now, I've started hearing, you know, I've not consolidated this present news, that the pump price of petroleum is going up again.
That's right.
You see, so what do we do to scale down the cost of living that we upscale the standard of living? Those are the questions. We must be productive as a people.
Absolutely. Let's look at another concern. that is being generated with regards to this tax reform bill, and that has to do with education. The governors agreed that no terminal clause for TED Fund, NASENI, and NITDA in sharing development levies in the bills. But ASU had come out to raise concern, saying that the decisions reached is a threat to public education. And so something has to be done. Nigerians has to look at this, because the government is now focusing on NEL Fund as against TED Fund that is used for developing universities. I wonder what you make of that aspect of this reform.
I absolutely agree with that, because I've seen the impact of TED Fund. And even though the committee is saying, oh, it may not be taken out completely until 2030 or whatever, that should be a matter of concern. And that is the beauty of stakeholders' engagement. So those in the education sector are saying it will adversely affect us. Don't touch it. And again, kudos to the government that listens to the stakeholders, because at the end of the day, there is what you call consequences management. In business. You see, when the power sector was unbundled in Nigeria and things, people expressed their concerns. Where are we today? Are we better for it? You see, when the issue of petroleum industry bill that was held for decades eventually translated into an act, some were rejoicing. Do we have a positive experience coming out of it? So people should express their concerns in advance. That is being proactive. And it is the business of the government by mandate. If you look at Section 14, subsection 2 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended, to provide security and welfare for the citizens. You see, so even Ghana, that has really copied the concept of TED Fund from Nigeria, is wondering, why are you now going to tamper with this? So you find stakeholders coming from how it will impact them. And the National Assembly must listen to them. You see, so if we have a group tomorrow that comes up to say, hey, and that is why I advise Nigerians, even though this may appear as constitutional issues, it's your life, get involved. And that is why some of us come out to speak to them. The focus should be to develop the people. That is the driving force of national development. Lee Kuan Yew did it in Singapore. Sheikh Zayed did it in the UAE. You see, there are leaders of the world who focus on developing the people. So, and any policy, any reform that we decimate the productive capacity of citizens should be looked at critically. What we need now in Nigeria is prosperity.
Absolutely.
See, after all, the word of God says that weeping may endure for a night.
Joy comes in the morning.
Absolutely. So I look forward to this government moving us in the direction of, we are too blessed to be poor. I keep saying it. On this issue of the resources in Nigeria that I spoke about, I was fortunate to be one of the guests during the Dangote cement factory expansion in Obajana. They flew us there, and I recall the lecture of Dr. Makoju of blessed memory. He said that the raw materials for producing cement in Kogi State could not be exhausted in 70 years. 70. I'm talking of about 2014 now, when we
that's
there.
an estimate.
And secondly, that it is cheaper to construct roads with concrete, which the government of Muhammadu Buhari did with Dangote from Apapa to Maryland and all those. And thirdly, that it is cheaper to maintain roads that are constructed with concrete. So you look at the other mineral resources. Right. The bitumen in Ondo State and that region is about the second largest deposit in the whole world. So let's focus on how we can activate and maximize our resources to produce commonwealth for common good.
All right, Barrister Logan, because of our time, well, there has been public distrust when it comes to managing tax revenues and all of that due to corruption. And if you ask so many people in this world, they'll tell you, I don't want to pay tax. But then certainly they have to pay because it's part of their obligations, part of the duties to the country. But the president is, racing on with these tax reform bills, is now in consonance with the NGF. The legislators are also throwing their weight behind it. But what are the likely bottlenecks? Because Mr. Taiwo Yedele says that the tax reform will be passed in the first quarter of this year, and then implementation starts July the 1st. But what are the likely bottlenecks or challenges that you think it might face that might affect the proper implementation or the successful implementation of this tax reform?
It's a function of accountability, which is a key element in corporate governance and in good governance. So I expect that the leadership of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu should score a high mark in restoring accountability. The big question is that, is it good to be good to your citizens? And I recommend the template of Joseph in the Bible. Joseph became the prime minister in Genesis chapter 41, and he was given the opportunity to manage the economy of Egypt, and he managed it effectively. Once again, let me say this. Nigeria is blessed. We have resources, so it's an opportunity given to the president. And if you look at Section 5 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended, he is vested with that executive power to, governize the other paraphernalia of office.
But the president can't go with a loan. The government.
Yes, I was going there.
Yeah, and the
Section 15 subsection 5 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended says the state shall abolish corrupt practices and abuse of office. Yeah. So if he really wants to excel, he has the power. And what do you do with power? It's up to you. It's up to you. Nigeria is great, and that greatness must manifest. And I believe strongly in this country. So it's a matter of identifying where you need to channel your efforts by way of prioritization and to hold down the enemies of the state, except they are not known to the government. But as a matter of reference, the Nigerian government claimed that they identified about 400 sponsors of Boko Haram. If they sponsor Boko Haram, they are likely to be sponsors of oil theft. So go after them, deal with them. Otherwise, they will deflate your good intentions.
Absolutely, and that's a fine place to leave this conversation. Accountability at the end of the day to ensure that we achieve what we desire. Thank you so much, lawyer, social development advocate Jide Ologun, for your time on the program.
Thank you. God bless Nigeria.
Amen.